And good morning, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever it is around this great world that you are watching me from. It's Kate Richburg, and I am live on this Wednesday morning here in Redwood City, California. We are live for everyone's favorite day of the week. At least it's my favorite day of the week. I hope it is for you too. Here on Beadshop Live. I am just going to click around and make sure that we're live and streaming on all of our platforms. There we go. I can see you guys comment, and I will be up in just a moment in 3, 2, and 1. Alrighty, so today we are going to have, I think, a fun day. I don't know if you got the newsletter this morning. But in the newsletter, Drea wrote this whole ode about how wire is my love language and all of this stuff. Well, it kind of is. Wire is my spirit animal for sure. And I'm really excited to share some moves with you today. I have a couple of pages from let me go over here this way so you guys can see them, from our lookbook that I premiered last week with Allie and you guys have been playing around with. There's a couple of great wire things in here that I'm going to share with you guys. And I've got some samples sitting here on my desk in front of me that I got right off the wall, some from my archive in my office. But before we get started, I wanted to give a quick shout out to everybody, to say hello. It looks like my mom is watching from the quilt retreat, and so it reminds me I wanted to make a mention of this. We are busy planning our 4th annual Beadshop Bead Retreat is coming up this September. I believe it's the 11th through the 14th of December of this year, 2020. You'll be getting information on that soon in your newsletters. So just save that date, mark that date, because it's coming up and we're going to be opening registration soon. We've got a great lineup this year planned for you. The topic is called Skills, Balance, and Mastery, and it's going to be really, really amazing. So more on that to come. So my mom's quilt retreat, it's at the same place there that we go to at the St. Francis Retreat Center in San Juan Bautista, California. So a big shout out and hello to all of you quilting ladies that are out there. Second only to this, I wish I were there with you sewing and having a good time. So a big hello to all the quilt ladies there. I also wanted to let you guys know, if you have not downloaded our amazing lookbook that the design team, I'm just going to grab the cover because it's 30 pages long. You can find it over on our beadshop.com website. If you go right to the home page and you click on projects and you scroll down to lookbooks, you'll see all of the lookbooks there, and this is the latest one that's come from our design team. And the design team, you guys are amazing as always, but this book has really hit it out of the park, which is really great. So thank you so much. I know so many of you have loved that. And I've got some samples and some pieces coming up on future Beadshop Lives taken straight out of the lookbook, so it's great. I also wanted to mention our dear Gita, who is our moderator usually over on our Facebook feed. Gita's out today, I think, whooping it up, having a good time. So she is off today, and Janice will be kind of bouncing back and forth moderating between YouTube and our Facebook feed. So Janice has got it, so thanks for that. All right, so someone commented, Faye, you are eagle-eyed, or as they say in Top Gun, a steely-eyed missile man. I don't know if you guys are excited about the new Top Gun, but I am. Anyway, so this is a piece, and I'll show you, I'll kind of lean in and I can take it off a little bit later. This is a piece that was made by my buddy Diane Owens, and you can follow her on Instagram, Sunny Owens Jewelry. I think it's SONNIE Owens Jewelry. And what Diane does that I love, and that I do, but not as well as she does really, is she repurposes old vintage pieces into her designs. And this, she does a lot of wire wrapping and stuff. So I'll take this off later so you guys can see it. But it's a great way to mix the new with the old, you know, like your bead stash that you have here from beadshop.com, and maybe some other things that are kind of languishing in your jewel box. So this, I tried to wear a little bit of wire today. So I'll show you this. So I'll share that with you. And then I have some pieces that I'm going to be working with today. I did just a quick listing so you guys could take a look at it. This one is kind of a loosey-goosey kind of broadcast, especially with wire. I don't like to think about it too much, really, before I do it. I just like to improvise. So as I sailed through our fulfillment rooms, I grabbed a few things off the shelves, made sure we had them in stock, and jumped in and grabbed these guys. So what I did was I grabbed some things that were in kind of a cool color palette. And remember how Cynthia was talking, and Brittany also talks about it as well. If you have kind of a more limited color palette or a limited amount of pieces to choose from, it can make you a little more creative. Okay, so I chose a very limited palette today, and this is what I've got going on. So I'm going to click over to the real palette, also laid out exactly. Can you tell where I took the picture from that I posted earlier? So these are the Ashanti saucers right here. I've got some large hole pearls. I want to talk to you about working with large hole pearls and wire. We've got these serpentine donuts, which are here. I've got a 40 millimeter pie disc, the silver leaf pie, which I love. The currants in, I think this is blush. What did I call them? Let me click back over here. Shell, sorry, they're called shell, is what they're called. Pebbles in brass, also with a little bit of a larger hole there. And two strands that I love, the 6 millimeter Persian turquoise Picasso, and this, I think it's second only to brass shadows because it looks exactly like them, right? Is this 4 millimeter opaque yellow copper Picasso bead. I adore it. I love it. So if you kind of look with the color palette that I've chosen, it's pretty what do I want to say, harmonious, I guess. So I can put my hand over and choose anything, make any components out of any of these beads, and they'll all work. Okay, so that's why I chose that that kind of mixture of beads. This that I have in my hand, this reflecting all of this gleaming light off of it, is our bench block, our steel bench block. Mine has been used and loved, so it's a great one to, of course, for hammering. And I have right here also our chasing hammer, which is here, that I'm going to be using because I'm going to be doing some hammering today as well. Hopefully it won't be too loud on the microphone here, and I'm going to pad it a little bit as I work. But I wanted to show you Diane's piece here. Let me go right over here. This is Diane's piece that she made that I was wearing earlier. And you can see this is an old sterling silver piece that used to be a pin. Okay, and she took the pin off, ground it down, okay, and she added some holes just with her hole punch here, And then she wire wrapped, and you can see this is probably a snowy crystal quartz here that she wire wrapped just to chain links. And you can see she's just added a little clasp in back and then a pretty little pyrite piece back here. What I love, what I wanted to show you with Diane's piece, and it's a great way to finish things off. See how she has made a nice, and it's right here on this finger, if you can see that. She's made a really very tiny, she's used an 11-aught seed bead, and she's wire wrapped a closure. So it wire wraps from this chain link, smaller link here, the 11-aught seed bead, and then a larger link that goes into, and if I know Diane, this is probably a vintage spring ring clasp. And then the closure looks exactly the same. So can you see how it's symmetrical with a small loop there, a large loop, and then the spring ring? And then to add just a little, you know, joie de vivre is just a little, that pretty little faceted pyrite piece. So this closure, and you could do this, we don't carry spring rings, but we do carry the nice lobster claws, which I like a lot. And the lobster claw would be a nice substitution for this. But very, very simple and a very nice vintage closure that ties in very well with this chain, with any kind of chain closure. So Diane gifted this to me a while back, and I love it. You know, I don't know about you guys, but when people give me jewelry, I love it. And I know people say, oh, but Kate, you make so much jewelry, you know, but I love supporting my fellow jewelry artists and wearing handmade. I think it's so, or hand wrought or handcrafted or whatever it is you want to call it, but I just love it. So a big shout out to Diane and her jewelry designs. I think Janice linked her in one of the chats, but you can find her right on Instagram at Sunnie Owens Jewelry, SONNIE Owens, OWENS Jewelry, and she shows throughout the California area as well as sometimes across the US. So thank you for that, Diane. I love it. But let's take a look at some of these things that I've got to show you that, again, I just pulled off the wall and I wanted to share with you guys. Some of these, my mom will laugh if she's still watching. She remembers these from way, way back in the day. So this here, I'm going to pull this one to the front, okay? And I just also wanted to mention, I see a couple of you might be having issues with your stream. All streaming here on our end is strong. You may want to make sure that if you're streaming on data, if you can attach yourself to your internet connection. Sometimes that's the issue with that. But if you go completely out, close down your app, either your Facebook app or your YouTube app, depending on where you're watching, then you can maybe see it a little bit better. So sorry about that, but everything is up here streaming on our end. Sometimes the signal just goes out a little bit slower. So sorry about that. So here what I've got, this is an old school piece that I've done, and this one, I don't know, this necklace is probably, I probably did this in the mid-90s. It's probably, I don't know, 25 years old, almost, I would think. And this is back in the day when I made a lot of glass beads, lampwork glass beads at my torch. I love making glass beads. I still do, and someday I'll get that torch back out and melt that glass. But these were a lot of necklaces I made back in the day, and I taught this one. But it really shows a lot of wire components that are very easy to make. I've done this a couple of times on several different shows here on Beadshop Live, but it's just a way that you can see how when you do wire work, do a little bit of negative space in the piece really helps to lighten things up. I love this. This is one that's a little more delicate, but kind of the same idea. This is one that I did way back. I don't know if you guys remember Wirework magazine. It was an interweave magazine product. It was great. It has since gone the way of the dodo, unfortunately. But this was a piece when I was their featured artist of the year back in the early 2000s. I did a project a month for Wirework, and this was one of the ones that I did. And I wanted to show you just this link, this kind of embellished link that I do. This is 18 gauge wire, I think that link is. And I alternated by doing plain links and embellished links. And then these embellished links, you can see I've just got a bunch of just random stuff in there. Like there's a 3mm bead, there's a freshwater pearl, there's some 11/aughts. I think that's a tiny 2mm bead in there. That's a 4mm that's there. So these little beads, and I think this is probably 26 gauge wire that I worked with. It's kind of a fun way to do it, and you can see it's meant to be worn in the front. And I had some of these giant chrysoprase nuggets in my stash back in the day. So I just wire wrapped all of those guys. And then you can see this one, hold it in my hand kind of flat so you can see it. That that clasp, really easy and fun to make. So this is, it's a fun one. And just this chain, it's really fun to make chain. And I think I made these jump rings as well. This is probably 16 gauge that I made these jump rings out of. So really fun to make, super freeform. You know, you don't have to commit to a long, you know, you can just make this as an earring component too, would work nicely. Then I wanted to share a couple of things that I've done on Beadshop Live. I've done, this is that horseshoe chain that I did. It's a flat link that I've wire wrapped. I think this is maybe 20 gauge underneath or 18 gauge, and then it's wrapped. I think this is 26 gauge that I wrapped it with, and I just used our lobster claw on it, our little swivel lobster, and then just a tiny little charm there on the end. But this is with our Parawire that I did this. And again, I think it's a Free Tip Friday project here. And Christine was asking about this piece here. Christine, it is indeed sterling from way back in the day. Okay. Then I wanted to show, this was kind of a riff. This one here, I think I only made one because if I make it on the, if I make it on air and I don't go back and finish it right away, there's only one that's ever made. So this is kind of that horseshoe earring. I must have made it on the same broadcast. But can you see how it's exactly the same thing except it's not wrapped? I had a little wire that I made a paddle pin at the bottom out of and put all of these on a jump ring. So it's a fun little earring. It's a great way to showcase kind of a fun bead. This chunky wire piece then, Christine, maybe you're asking about this one. This is copper, and it's just naturally patinaed over the years here. But some of my favorites, some of my glass beads from back in the day. It was kind of fun. But yeah, this is copper, and I've used 16 and 14 gauge probably here for this one, and probably some 18 too. Just a variety. Also, I wanted to show you guys this one. This earring is a fun little earring. And I think I did it back, I don't know, when we first started doing the Beadshop Live broadcasts. I did a whole day of like kind of random earring designs. But I wanted to show you how this is an eye pin here that I used, and how part of that wire is exposed on the eye pin to make it kind of a slim silhouette there, connecting it to a 7mm jump ring. And then I think this is just matte African turquoise. And I think we have a few, this is called the turtle shell or tortoise shell bead cap. I don't think we can get any more of these, but I think we've got a few more left as of today, January 29th, 2020, on our website. But you can use any cap as well. But I think it's a really fun silhouette, and it's also, I think, a good study in mixed metals. So I wanted to show you those. And then last but not least, well, I've got one more giant one that I'll show you, but this is one, I must have done this on a Free Tip Friday as well. It's some freeform wire wrapping, also with 16 gauge and probably 22 gauge here. That big leaf drop that we have that I just love, 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 and some freeform wire wrapping all around. And it's a great one to just stick on your handbag or on a zipper pull or whatever. So I think they're pretty cool. So I wanted to share that with you. Then I have this guy. This is, again, super old school Kate designing. Again, probably 25 years ago. This is a piece when I used to teach heavy gauge wire work a lot. It was very, very popular. And this, I think, might be 12 gauge, maybe. I don't think it's 10, but I think it's 12 gauge here. And then these flat little spirals. And then, you know, nothing is ever new in my bag of tricks. Of course, this is a donut or disc or a pie disc. I think this one is Sodalite, or it might be Blue Adventuring. And you can see how it's just wire wrapped to two of my lampwork beads here. Connecting to that end, of course, is a good old wire guard and crimp cover. And, of course, just a simple wire work clasp on the back. Okay, so all of these moves, things that I'm going to share with you today, I'm just going to riff and just play, and we'll see what comes out of it. I wanted to spotlight a couple of the projects that we have from the lookbook. This one that Kim Golias did, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it. This piece that she did called Wilma, it's a great piece, and she used these little, I don't know if you guys can see that, but the little coiled bead, she used that as kind of a jump ring in between her pieces there, which I love. And then this ear wire here, which I just love, this fun ear wire. And I'm going to show you how to do a little ear wire shape like that. And then, of course, Faye made this one called Pearl Twirl, and it is chock full of wire. You can see that spiral at the bottom. She's made all of these spiral head pins that she's wire wrapped. So we're going to play around a little bit with those techniques as well. Okay, so let me start by talking to you about the wire. Okay, I pulled bare copper just because that, again, is kind of my go-to. And a lot of times I antique wire. I did a whole broadcast on antiquing with the liver of sulfur that we carry. And we do carry it. I like working with the LOS. If you're doing liver of sulfur antiquing, and you can always antique your wire, pre-antique the wire, and then use it antiqued. And or if you have components that don't have beads that would be affected by the LOS, like, you know, I wouldn't dip pearls in, but sometimes glass can go in, especially if it's not coated, harder stones, stuff like that. Then you can dip the whole piece in, rinse, and then use a pro polish pad to polish it up. But if you're doing stuff with wire, you may want to dip and pre-oxidize your wire and then actually work on it. Okay, so I've got 16 gauge here. I've got 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24. And if you don't know what you want wire-wise, this is a good mix to have. I would also probably add 26. We also carry 28, which is really nice and thin. And sometimes 28 works really nicely if you're doing this freeform stuff here. I would use 26 or 28 for something like that. Okay. So I also I've got this disc. So let's start, I don't know, let's start with the disc just because it's here. Okay. And I'm going to wire wrap this guy. I'm going to get a little tighter in here. And so how do I choose wire? You're asking. Kate, how would you choose wire for this? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to open up my 22 and I'm going to kind of lay it out. And sometimes I think about like what the final product is going to be, maybe how heavy, you know, of a weight this is going to carry. That's 24. I think that's a little thin. I'm going to go up to 20 here. I think 18 is a little too chunky for this size. So let me undo this 20. And I'll show you the difference between the 20 and the 22. Can you see that? 20 is over here, 22 is over here. And if I bring the disc up and we look at it, it really depends. If I'm going to do like a bunch of wrapping around or embellishing or whatever, I might go with 22. If I'm just doing like a single wrap or something, or I want it to kind of stand on its own, maybe I'd use the 20. I'm going to, I think I'm going to use the 20. I like the looks of the 20, and I don't think I'm going to put beads or anything else on this. So I'm just going to cut off a length, and I know you're going to ask me, how long are you going to cut? Well, here's my little ruler. So let me do, I'm just going to go with the 6-inch piece for this. And I'm going to use my trusty Xuron flush cutters. We love our American made, right in Maine, USA. These wonderful Xuron pliers, these are the maxi shears. I use them all the way down to 28 gauge to all the way up to really 12 gauge. I use these for heavy wire. As long as it's soft wire, do not use these beauties on your memory wire. We have a special memory wire cutter for that, so don't make that fatal mistake. Okay, so I'm just going to come in and I'm going to wire wrap this disc. Fastest, easiest, simplest way to wear one of these. I'm going to find maybe about 1/3 to 2/3 here. I'm going to put the wire through, and I'm going to put it through again so it goes through doubled. And again, I'm looking on the screen and I can see how raggedy my hands look, but you know what? I am a wire worker and a metalsmith and a beater, not a hand model. So these are working lady hands. So that's the story with that. So sorry, someday I'll get another manicure. Oh, and I've made kind of a mess. Wire's a messy business, so whatevs. All right, so I've gone through twice here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it to the side so you guys can see this. And I'm going to come in with my chain nose. And I'm going to come in and squeeze these two wires together, okay? And by squeezing those with my chain nose, it kind of pulls everything in so it's tight. And can you see how I've kind of tightened it up on the shoulders of the disc? And if I walk this wire around, you can see it's not super tight, okay? So now I'm going to just come in with my piece here. Now, if I'm using a large hold bead, let's say, okay, what if I wanted a bead on top of this? I could grab something like this large hole pearl, because that large hole fits over both of those 20 gauge wires, okay, like that. Let's see if these pebbles do. The pebbles have a pretty big hole. Let's see if it does. Nope, not quite. Okay, but you can see those bead holes. The currents, I'm sure does, because again, the hole size is huge, right? Like that. And I think that's kind of pretty, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it there. Now, I'm going to come in and I'm going to wire wrap this over the top. So I'm going to grab, and in our, what do I want to say, our skill building section on our website, we have a step-by-step on how to make a wire wrap loop. So you can download it and follow along. But I'm going to talk you through it here. Yeah, the currents are beautiful. Aren't they nice? They're recycled glass that African glass bead. I just love them. And Janice called them currents because they have the feel of sea glass to them, being tossed around in the currents of the ocean. So I love them. So I'm going to come in with this long wire, bend it over the top of my chain nose plier. And when I pull my chain nose plier away, can you see where I was gripping it? It leaves a little neck. That neck I'm going to eventually come around and wire wrap down here. So can you see how that width of the plier, if I wanted fewer wire wraps, I'd go lower down on the plier. Okay, so let me get my round nose plier. And the round nose here, like this, you can see I'm putting it in, maybe I'll hold it this way so it doesn't feel upside down. I'm putting it in at where I want to go up and over. I want to match this size of the head of the tool with the size of the loop I want, right? So I want not a teeny tiny loop, but not a giant one either. So I'm going to go about in the middle. Okay, I'm going to come up and over the top. See that there? And I'm going to take the tool out. And so this is what I have. Okay. Now I'm going to come up. I'm just going to ignore that wire there. Just ignoring it. Okay, don't worry. I'm going to put it back on the jaw of the plier, the lower jaw. Now I'm going to pull this 20 gauge wire, is what I'm using, underneath to close the loop. Okay, and if I can't quite get it as tight as I want to, I'll get my bent chain and just give it a little tug, a little tuggy tug right there. Okay, now it's ready. If my loop was leaning over a little bit, I'd just take my tool and turn that loop a little bit so it was nice and straight up and down. Okay, so maybe I'll try and, there we go, just a hair, right? And I'm going to put that other plain wire kind of in the center. Okay, so now I'm going to switch pliers. I'm going to get my flat chain nose and I'm going to grab the loop and this wire coming up from inside the bead. I'm going to kind of grab it at an angle because I still want to expose this little neck because that's what I'm going to wire wrap around. Okay, so now I'm going to take this piece of wire and wrap it. Now I can straighten it out because I've straightened that wire out. Now I'm going to wrap it 180 degrees at a time. Okay, so I'm going to get it with my bent chain nose, grab the tip of my wire and pull it through. Pull it around. Okay, so there's one wrap. And I want to make sure that, see how this is straight, and notice how I'm holding everything. This is on the horizon and this is on the vertical. Okay, I'm trying to keep everything straight. That'll keep my wraps and everything pretty even and straight. So now, and ease up on the death grip on your tools, you guys. Hold them firmly but with a light touch. I'm going to bring it around, one wrap below the other, one wrap below the other, and try and stay in screen all at the same time. Whoops. And bring it around. Let me do it that way. There we go. And I have such a tiny little bit of wire here. I probably should have cut this just a little bit longer, but this is going to be the perfect amount of wire for me to use. I'm going to put this plier down, hold it in my hands, get this bent chain nose back into my dominant hand, and see that bent, see how it's a little not so pretty right there? I'm just going to come in with the tips of my bent chain nose and gently give it a hug. Okay? And that fixes everything just perfectly. Now see how we still have this long wire to contend with, and we still have this loop that's kind of leaning over to the left there. All I do is I'm going to pull this down. All right? I'm going to get that Xuron, come in with the tip right there, being really careful I'm not going to nick anything else, putting my index finger over the top of it so it doesn't come up and hit me or you in the head. Okay? And I grab it here and I'm going to straighten everything out. That's it. Okay? That disc is wrapped. Now that little point, if it's sticking up a little bit, I can get my tool in and just kind of bend it down so it doesn't hit you. Now I've got some movement here, which is okay, right? If you want it to move, or if you don't want this sucker to move, you can come in and do what I call these little lightning bolts, kind of a signature Kate Richburg wire move here. I'll grab it with the tip of my chain nose and give it just a gentle quarter turn like that. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here. You can only achieve this though if your wire is loose. If it's not loose, you would nick this wire. Okay, so make sure you have some looseness here, or you might break your wire, break your disc, nick it or something. So we just want to be careful about that when you do this. But okay, so we've got our first component. All right, so I'm going to put this aside. So I'm going to get these 3 Ashanti saucers in front of me, and I'm going to grab some 24 gauge. Now, I don't know. We'll see if this is going to work. It could all end in tears, but I don't think so. So Peggy's asking, Peggy, I'm so glad you found this helpful. You can watch and rewatch all of our videos from beadshop.com on our YouTube channel. If you go and you give it a follow, it's beadshop.dot.com, C-O-M, all spelled out. You can give it a follow and you'll be notified every time one of those plays. But we have just a ton of great kind of helpful videos over there. But yeah, and it also is archived right here on our Facebook page as well, so you can watch it anytime. It'll also be archived on our website under this project, and I think this project is called Wire Play Day with Kate. Okay, so all right, here's some 24 gauge, and maybe this is about a foot. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center and just go with me on this. Okay, just stick with me. I'm going to get my round nose. I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring one up, one around. I'm going to kind of center that one wire. See what I've got? I've got that. And this is in the center of the wire. And I'm going to come around once, twice, 3 times. Okay? Getting this from so that this is on the horizon line, this is on the vertical, so everything's nice and even. Now, some of you can remember Janice did that one project called Homecoming, and we've done this a couple of times. So when I've got the Ashanti saucers here, I'm going to use the wire. I'm going to bring this wire in and see how I brought it through the center like this. 24 gauge is malleable enough for me to do all of this with, but substantial enough that it will have some hold to it. Now this is dead soft wire. Can you tell? Because it's soft, I'm really able to manipulate it. So see here how I've crossed through just like this was thread, okay? This is a little sad right here, right? It got a little bent. I'm going to get my nylon jaw plier, close it around that wire, and just pull them straight. Okay? This also slightly work hardens, which isn't a bad thing. Okay? And I'm just going to bend this. I'm going to use my fingers. I think I used 24. Yeah, this is 24 gauge, just making sure. Now I'm going to get my next Ashanti saucer. I'm going to put it next to this one, and I make kind of big movements so that I have a big loop there so it doesn't get too wrinkled. Okay, and then just kind of slide that sucker through. And if you need help, whoops, I was a little too vigorous. If you need help kind of pulling your wire tight, you can use your chain nose or your bent chain nose. Right? And so I'll do the same thing with this wire in back. If I do it in the front, I do it in back. And see, the wires are just crossing. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll give it a little tug, a little tuggy tug there, and tugging on the end there. And then let's see what I've got. See, it's a little curved down, so let's just straighten it out. You're the boss of this wire. And I'm going to do this one more time. Okay, so let's do this. And these Ashanti saucers in particular sort of have a top and a bottom. Some don't, but it depends on how they make them. These are what are known as sand cast beads. So however they cast the beads in the sand molds, sometimes they are kind of curved on both sides, and sometimes maybe one side might be a little flatter than the other. These are a little bit flatter on one side, so I'm stacking the flattened sides up, if you can see that. I could also put some 11/0 on here if I wanted, but for now I'm just going to kind of have the wire be bare. And I'm going to turn this around. I put the wire in the front, so I'll take the opposite wire and put it through the back. Okay. It's great also to see that so many of you are watching for the first time. We're so pleased to have you here. Our Wednesday broadcast is a little more formal. Formal meaning that I kind of have a project usually planned, though today is a little less formal. And then on Fridays, also at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, we do it again. It's called Free Tip Friday, and I do things that are a little more off the cuff at that point. So see here how I've kind of brought these two together, just like I've done on the top of this disc, right? It's the same method, the same operation. It's just I'm using it differently. Thinner wire, different component, all that kind of stuff. Okay, I love all these likes and these hearts. You know, you guys, the more you like and kind of respond with those likes and thumbs up and hearts for these videos, the higher we get in the online ranking. So we really appreciate all of that. It really does help. So now I'm going to wire wrap just like I did over the top of that disc. I'm going to bend up and over the top, flip that tool up, go down and underneath. And now I'm going to switch tools to grab that loop. And see here, I'm going to bring this up to the vertical. The rest of this is on the horizontal. And I'm not, ease up on your death grip, kids. This isn't a lifeline, it's just a plier. So ease up on your grip, hold it firmly, but not so tight that you're marking the wire. And now I'm just going to wire wrap one little wrap below the other. Okay, keeping the tension in this wire. That's what keeps this wire from bending or being nice and straight. Okay, so there it is. So now I'm going to pull this one down. And you guys, I've been wire wrapping. Literally, I wire wrapped on the first day when I started working for Janice the first time back in 1992, August of 1992 to be exact. Pretty much my first day on the job, our old class director, Mia, taught me how to wire wrap. So I have been wire wrapping since August of 1992. You do the math. It's 2020. I've been doing this a long time, right? So what I do with wire, I really do make it look easy. But I'll tell you, an inexpensive spool of wire, I'm using the Parawire bare copper, and some practice just going over it and playing around and stuff, you will get, you'll get this. Okay, so um, just practice. It's okay. And these little bits and pieces, just don't get so emotionally involved in these guys that you're just like, oh my God, I just can't do it. You know, who cares? If this didn't come out right, you would just cut this up and cast the wire aside and try again, right? So don't don't even stress. All right. So now I have this kind of fun component, I think. Okay. So I've got a little bit of room here, so I don't know if I can tighten up a little bit to really make everything sit exactly right. Okay. There we go. And see how gently I'm just coming up to the wire and going, "Hey, do you want to be moved around?" And I'm all, "Yeah, okay. Sure." So let's tighten it up. Yeah, there we go. And I think it adds a little bit of uh, makes this piece feel a little more sturdy, a little less loosey goosey, and it adds some visual interest to it. I'm just going to come in on the back. I also like, Laura, you said these would be nice to use as like a pie to make earrings. Yes, exactly. I agree. I think they would look great. And so you can see I've just done that little section and I've just tightened everything in. This wire's a little off, so I'm going to get the side of my tool, give it a little hug. There we go. And Mimi's asking, how do I envision using this piece? I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not worrying about that part yet. Sometimes what I do, and I'm not trying to be flip at all. I'm just trying to let you know what's going inside my brain. I don't worry about that part yet, honestly, because I just want to get that black mark off the screen because it's not pretty. Because I don't know. I don't know. But I'm not going to worry about it yet. Okay? So I'm going to go here, and let's make another component. We've got plenty of time, right? So let me use things with some larger holes, and let's move up to the 16 gauge. Now, I want to share with you, this is kind of that piece, like that piece that Faye has made, if you'll remember, in our book, this piece called Pearl Twirl by Faye. She did all of these really fun spirals at the bottom. So I want to use something that has a big piece of wire, or a heavy gauge wire. This is 16 gauge. And that 16 gauge will fit that large hole. And Janice, I've tightened this piece up. Janice is asking if I can bend it. I've tightened it up so it doesn't really curve, which what I was looking for. I wanted this to be kind of stable this way. Okay, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to get my bench block out. Here it comes. It's time. It's that time. So for a spiral, what I do is I come in and I'm going to grab my 16 gauge. And can you see where I just lopped it off the spool? Can you see how it has kind of a little point to it there? Well, I'm going to cut that point off using these flush cutters, using these Zurons. This is the flush side right here. Okay, so I'm going to come in, do a straight across cut, and I automatically do this. I adjust my hand. If I pull it down here, you can kind of see. See how the tips of the wire cutter are straight up and down, and my hand is an angle, right? If I were just holding my hand straight up and down like this, see how the head of the tool is at an angle. So I automatically correct. I put this in so when I clip it, I have a nice straight across flush cut. Can you see that? If I hadn't made that correction and held my tool this way, I would have cut and I still would have had an angle. So the flush. Okay. So now I'm going to make a spiral. Spirals, again, are kind of my gig here. Whoops, why did it go? Sorry, I went out of focus there for a second. I'm going to get the tip of my chain nose plier, the very, very, very tip of it, okay? Holding it lightly with my right hand. I'm right-handed, so my dominant hand is holding my tool. I come in, just even with the thumb or the index finger of my non-dominant hand, I come in and I just twirl this around. This is just holding it. I'm not shaping it around the tool. It's just holding. Okay. And see how the wire just wants to spiral. Okay. If you want this spiral to be closed, yeah, my hands really look terrible today. I'm sorry. They're kind of worse than usual, but whatever. You're not here to see the beauty of my hands. You're here to see wire work. I'm going to come in, kind of pull that in and tighten this up a little bit. Okay. So can you see? Oh yeah, behind the black handle of the tool, you can really see it. Then what I do is I hold that spiral at the bottom of my chain nose. Hold on to it pretty tightly, and it's why I like these kind of blue and black handled ones that we carry, because my index finger and my thumb just fit perfectly right there. And I put some pressure on the tool here with this part of, you can see I'm not holding it at all with those two top fingers. I put a lot of pressure on my hand right here, okay? And I can also kind of have a little more control with my fingers here. So then I can hold it nice and tight and just spiral up and spiral up like that, okay? And that's it. So from here, you just pull the wire up, open the tool, and reposition, okay? Michelle, Michelle asks a good question. She says, how often do you have to buy new pliers? I have in my toolkit the very first pliers I've ever bought. We carry the red handled, though they've been back ordered for a little while, so but we'll get them back in. The red handled German tools, I still have the very first one I ever bought. The quality is excellent. These are Pakistani pliers, and the quality on these are decent. They're really pretty decent. So I would say unless you nick your plier or, I don't know, use it to pry something open, a plier is really almost a once in a lifetime purchase. Sometimes with pliers, if you're using like steel wire or wire that's really hard, you'll start to get kind of a chewed up edge in these guys. You can dress your own pliers. There's a whole, I don't know, the easiest way to do that. I have this nail file that Gita sent me from Denmark that I keep here on the table. This is super fine grit. You could come in and file that a little bit if you have kind of that end that's kind of funny. But most of the time these are they're hardened tool steel, so they should last for you pretty well. So I when I acquire new pliers, it's usually because of tool lust. Or it does something that I have other pliers. You know, I have, it does something that another plier that I have, you know, doesn't do. So now I'm going to center this spiral. Okay, so see how I flipped the plier, the spiral was up here. And as I make the spiral, not only do I move the wire towards the tool, but I also move the tool towards the wire. So both of my hands are working this way. Okay, Michelle's saying you're so bad for tools. I am too. I'll just see a pretty tool and I'll be all, oh, yep, I've got to do that for sure. So I have this meme that I said, a new tool beats out a new handbag every single time, which isn't always true for me, but it's mostly true. Anyway, I'm going to push this towards me like that, up against the side of the plier. and I'm going to push this forward like this. Okay, so I've given myself a nice centered spiral like so. All right, now it's time to hammer. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down on my bench block. I'm going to muffle some of the noise with this pad. I also use a mouse pad underneath. When I teach classes, I get these little, I have little mouse pads, and I do it underneath to kind of muffle the noise. What I'm going to do when I hammer, I'm actually going to put the microphone on mute because I'm not sure, it might be super loud and I don't want it to be annoying. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to mute, do it, and then put it back on. Okay, put the sound back on. So what I have here is my bench block, and what you want to do with your bench block, you want to make sure, this is an old one, I grabbed it from my tools that I use, my classroom tools. And you can see it has maybe a little bit of discoloration and stuff on here, but what I do is I use a lot of times like a 3-in-1 oil, or you can use, there's some other like rust inhibitors that you can get. Probably about twice a year I clean my tools in my studio and just remove some of the rust and stuff. So any discoloration that you see on the heads of these bench blocks, it's just discoloration. It's not a pit or anything like that. So you can also buff these out using, you can buff it with your Pro Polish pad. You can buff it with super, super fine grit sandpaper like a 2000 grit or an 1800 grit, stuff like using a Pro Polish pad. You can buff it with super, super fine grit sandpaper like a 2000 grit or an 1800 grit. Stuff like that. So you just want to keep the head of your, or the surface of your bench block, as nice and as unmarred as you can, because any marks on the surface of this steel are going to impart themselves onto whatever it is you're hammering. And the same thing goes for your chasing hammer here. I do dress my chasing hammers on my buffing wheel. Just they get dinged up from student use, so it's not the end of the world. You can also polish these guys up as well. So I'm gonna place this spiral on my bench block, and as I hammer, I'm gonna strike with my hammer and pull. Okay, so strike and pull, strike and pull. So I am flattening and kind of forming and forging this spiral as well. I'm going to get it a little tighter so you guys can see it as it goes. And I'm going to go ahead and mute as I hammer, so don't be alarmed that the sound is going out. And I'll come back in as soon as I'm done hammering. Okay, so here goes the mute. Okay, I think you guys can hear me again. So with that hammering, what I did was I hammered and pulled, flatten, pull, flatten, pull, then flipped it over, flatten, pull. And so can you see how you can kind of see the difference between the width of this spiral and the gauge of this wire, how much flatter I've done? And it's been work hardened, so the spiral's not going anywhere. Okay, so it's a great place for this large hold pearl, if you can see that there. And so what I can do now is I can make a loop on the other side. And I'm going to go ahead I'm gonna bring this around. Just like so, and now I'll hammer it. I'm gonna mute this again one more time so your ears don't hurt with the hammering. See how I'm holding this piece off the side here so I'm not either A, hammering my hand here or crushing the pearl here. Okay, I'm going to go back on mute and finish hammering. All right, ta-da! There it is. Okay, what do you guys think? I think it looks pretty good. I was going to put a loop on one side, but I thought, you know what, 2 spirals are better than 1. So that's what we went with. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that looks. So now, and someone asked earlier, Teresa, you asked if this was soft copper. It is indeed soft copper. That's why I like playing around with all of this bare copper wire, because it's really malleable and it's very comparable to sterling silver, right? It has that same kind of workability. So it's a good stand-in if you want to move up to sterling later. It's a good stand-in to kind of do your practice pieces with. Okay, so what we've got so far, let me widen the camera here. And so here's this piece that I've got here. Here's that fun little guy we did earlier. And here's this piece here. Okay, so what else have I got? I've got these serpentine discs. And I'm just going to go a little bit faster here because I want to make a few components. So I'm going to come in with this 22 gauge and I'm going to wire wrap these. I'm going to wire wrap this at Kate speed here, real quick like, so I get this one made. And as my mind starts to think about where I want to take these, sorry, I have a little bit of a dry throat, but I've got water, so I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So I'm going to go up and over, down and underneath, and I'm going to wire wrap. So Janice, I did see your question, your repeat of Beth's questions. Why is it important that I pull my wire towards you or towards me as I'm hammering? It's a good question. It helps me forge that motion of pulling the hammer towards me as I'm flattening. Kind of gives some shape to this spiral here. So it comes around and it kind of flattens down. It's even more noticeable on this side. So it leaves a little bit of dimension here. That wire's a little rounder. This is a little flat. So it just gives me a little bit more visual interest for this piece. Okay, so I think that's a good way to do it. Also, I think it helps you flatten things a little bit faster as well. Now, in Faye's piece that she did here, can you see she has those spirals at the bottom, and then she's wire wrapped up here at the top. But what you could also do are make spiral components like this and then insert a jump ring here and then use that jump ring to connect your chain. You could do that too, to have spirals on both ends. Or you could make a component like this. Obviously I used heavy gauge, this is 16, to fit through that pearl. But I think what Faye used was 20 gauge there. And so if you have beads that fit the 20 gauge hole, obviously that's what you'd use. Okay. So this piece that I'm doing here, that one with the serpentine disc, that one is the one like what Kim used here for that what's that, spiral, what do we call it, coiled spacer is what we call it. And she's just made a rosary loop that's looped through that coil spacer. But what you could do if you have spacers that are bigger, like these serpentine spacers, just like we did, can you see how this wrap and this wrap are exactly the same, right? So you can see it's just the same technique, heavier gauge wire, thinner gauge wire, larger bead, smaller bead. Okay, so if I want to connect this one, let's say that I was making a chain link of these guys and these guys, right? How would I connect this piece to that? So let me get, what was I using? 22? Was I using 22? Yes, I was. Someone rewind the tape and tell me what I used. And so I'll come through and I'll wire wrap this other side. Again, going at Kate speed because I want to get this done, because I have another idea in my mind I want to share with you before we part ways today. And then I'll do a little layout of this project so you can kind of see where I might be going with it. So I'll pull this up, pull it around. Okay. And then I'm going to just bend the wire. Now, this is the point where I get super excited about being almost finished with the component, and I forget to connect. I know that you guys do this too. I know I can't be alone. Okay. This is the serpentine, what's this one called? I'm going to click on the materials list real quick here. This is the serpentine donut. That's what I'm using. And so I'm going to hold this, make sure everything is nice and straight. But before I wire wrap it closed, kids, I have to add this component on. Okay. Hold it tight. See right in between. See where I've got my tool there? The component is hanging off this side and then the wire is over here. Okay. I'm just going to come in one below the other. Now I went double through the whole of this little mini donut thing here. You could certainly go single. I was kind of on the double wrap train, so that's why I kept at it. That one and that one. Tighten everything up. Okay, straighten it all out. And now these two are connected just like so. I think it's kind of fun. So now, how would I utilize, let me pull these out a little bit more. How would I utilize these components if I were fashioning a piece out of all of this? Okay. I'm going to move all this stuff over. You could put something like this in the center if you wanted, right? And so then I could make several of these components coming up, right? I could do another lineup and do of those three. I could also, maybe if I have that there and that there, maybe I'd throw that one in the center, right? Turn that over. There we go. I could also, with these little guys, these currants, you can see the currants have such a giant hole. I wanted to show you this guy. I'm going to keep going on this 22 train because I was kind of liking it. But I want to show you, if I didn't want a super heavy wire in between that, what I'll do is I'll make a wire wrap on one side. Okay. Again, at Kate speed, you've seen me do this before, so I'm going to do this kind of quickly. And I like to do about 3 wraps at the top and bottom of each bead, but you decide what you like to do. I'm going to clip that off using my Xuron, using the tips, being very careful to hold that little piece of wire so it doesn't fly up and hit you in the head. Then, if I were to use that currants bead, if I put it on the wire at this part, see how it would just fall over that wire wrap that I did? So it's always helpful to have some small little beads around. You'll remember this from Dria's Mountain Mix that we used last week on Beadshop Live, or that we were playing around with. So I'm just going to check and use that little A-dot. Can you see how that little A-dot is a perfect little stopper there? Okay, and it adds just a nice bracketing. This is galvanized pewter, Duracoat galvanized pewter. Just there. And now I'll wire wrap the other side. Bend at an angle. Oops. Do not there we go. Don't spill all your seed beads, Richburg. There we go. Up and over the top. Down and underneath. Center. And if I wanted to attach this, I would attach this now before I wire wrap. Or I could use jump rings, right? But if you want a loop-to-loop connection, you need to slide it on before you wrap, okay? Clip that extra away. There you are. So you could do a whole, strand of all this. Okay, just all these little things to play with. And you could just incorporate, I pulled these in case you wanted some smaller beads or whatever. I think they would also look nice. I really like this 6mm faceted, how it's a nice contrast between kind of the roughness of this currants bead. Not roughness, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to show you some ear wire extravaganza too, real quick, before we part ways. I'm going to use copper. I would probably use the silver, the non-tarnished silver for this, rather than the copper for the ear wire, but that's what I have here. And it's good practice for you. And then when you are ready to go and make your ear wires, you can translate what you learned on the copper into your silver plate, or if you have sterling silver wire, to do that as well. Okay, so some of you have seen me do this before, but I'm going to show you again because it's worth repeating. I'm going to go ahead, straighten out my wire with my nylon job plier. Again, that's about a little under 6 inches or so. Now this one that Kim did, this ear wire here, can you see how she just added the beads right onto the wire? So let's play around with that. I'm going to come in. You could wire wrap a loop on the end, but I'm just going to make a loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my round nose plier, loop it forward, and I'm not going to center it this time. Can you see that? How it's not centered? But what I am going to do is come in and flatten that a little bit to work harden it. I'm going to mute real quick while I hammer, and I'll be right back. There we go. Can you see with that flattening how it's flattened the front of that wire a little bit, and it's really work hardened. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a little opened just from the hammering. So I'm going to come in, tighten it down. Okay? Just like that. Now, you want to find something to shape around. I just happen to have my thread burner right here, or you could use a dowel, or I don't know, a big fat marker or whatever, but that's what I have here. So I'm going to just use my fingers, and see how I'm just doing this. I'm just kind of curving this wire around that thread burner, so it gives me a little bit of a nice curve shape. Now, I guess I'll put some beads on. Let me use, let's see what fits. One of those 6/0. This is that silver lined alabaster, I think. One of these Duracoat galvanized pewter. Let me get that out of the way. One of these pebbles. Yes, look at that. Maybe I want to do this stack. Maybe I want to do, I've got some 6/0 here too. Let me put that 6/0 up. And this, and this, and now I'll taper back down. Okay. So I've got kind of this nice little juicy group there. So I'm going to come in, and I'm not really sure, since I don't have Kim's earrings here, I'm not sure what length she added here, but I'm just going to arbitrarily guess. This is about, I don't know, 2 inches about. So this part is really a part of the design of your piece, right? I'm going to grab it right there where I'm going to make the bend, and I'm going to bend that all the way down. Okay, this is the part, you don't want a really rough bend because that's the part that's going to go in your ear. So I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers and kind of round up that bend after I've made it. Yeah, pill bottle. See, Kim? Smart. She used a pill bottle to get the round shape, and then she folded it in half. Good job for that for the jig. So can you see how I've kind of made that a gentle curve? Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to flatten this wire here so it's work hardened so it doesn't move. Again, I'm going to mute and I'll be back. Okay. Here we go. Now see how this, let me get a little tighter. How the beads want to move around a little bit. I'm going to just wrap a little coil on top of those so they don't move. And I'm looking for my 24 gauge for that coil. I'm going to put them up here. Hold this kind of together. Now just watch what I do. I'm just going to come in with this 24 gauge. Wrap it around. Oops. Come on. Who's the boss? There we go. Get that wire in there. There we go. And I can even start it a little bit higher because I can move it if I need to. Had I been planning this, like for the second one, when I do this second one, I would probably wrap up here, right? Wrap this before I shaped it because it's easier to wrap on a flat piece of wire or a straight piece of wire, right? Just like 3 or 4 little wraps, not a lot. Maybe this is 4. Then I'll come in, clip, clip, and push those little ends right along. Just don't see this wire as well as I used to. Come on now. There we go. There we go. And I'll push this in too. And I don't know why I'm using my straight chain nose and struggling. Let me use my bent chain. There we go. Makes it a lot easier. Bent chain nose to me are like a little pair of fingers that just come in and you can control that wire. There we go. Looks good. Just walk it around. So now I've got my little closure and I'm going to kind of tighten that very top little loop so nothing moves around. Okay? And that hammering that I've done really makes everything, see how it's work hardened? So this isn't going anywhere. Okay? So now I'll just, I don't know, Kim, you made yours kind of long too at the back, which I kind of like. It's kind of a nice design element. I'm going to cut them just a touch, maybe a little bit here. And use some sandpaper, or I'll use Gita's file she gave me to kind of file that end. Lots of, so these are ready for, like we said, maybe that Ashanti saucer pie or something. That might look good with it. I'll use some more 22 gauge. I'll just wire wrap it real quick. Okay, because it looks like It's almost noon. It's almost that time, which I hate to bring this fun broadcast of wire wrapping to a close, but I know you guys are eager to get started with your wire wrapping, so I should let you go soon. We'll just wire wrap that closed. Where's my cutter? There it is. Push this in. Pull that towards you. I just spilled all my seed beads over to my right. Come on, get back in that little triangle. Like this. And now that ear wire, I'm just going to make sure that's nice and tight in there. That loop on that ear wire, you can open it, slide it on, and close it up. There you are now. Kind of cool, kind of pretty. Okay. So there, there it is. All right. Oh, and Teresa, you're saying nobody ever said not to get the one with teeth, that they would mark the wire. Yes, you want to make sure, and it's a really good thing that you brought that up. You want to make sure that the heads of your tools are nice and smooth. Any marks or anything on these tools will transpose itself right onto your wire. So smooth heads will be good. And we carry these nice Pakistani ones on the on the website rather. We want to you can use these guys, the chain nose, all of these, and they fit really nicely in your hand. So you may want to check them out. Okay, so so that's our story for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed all of the excitement and hammering, and I don't know what else we did. I'm going to click back over so you can see the list that I've made, that I used. Some of the things that I used in today's broadcast, all available on beadshop.com. The Ashanti saucers were kind of fun. I'm glad that you dug that little component that I made with them. I think it was kind of fun to do. And then the currants, the shell color is what I used, large hole pearls, pebbles and brass, matte Persian turquoise Picasso 6mm, 4mm yellow copper opaque Picasso, the serpentine donut, and then the silver leaf jasper pie. I also want to mention, you guys, so today, if you've gotten your newsletter, go to today's January 29th. It's Wednesday, January 29th. And if you open your newsletter today, you would see that we had a newsletter. We talked about the broadcast here, you can see, and right here is a coupon code. And that coupon code is lookbook20. And if you use coupon code lookbook20 in your cart, in there, you will see that you will get 20% off of your order. Everything you put in your cart will be 20% off. But not only that, you guys, I'm doing a giveaway today. If you add yourself, I've got 3 parcels of wire to give away today. I've got a parcel of silver, a parcel of bare copper, and a parcel of vintage bronze. Okay? And we've got 3 samplers to raffle off. So when you placed your order today, you put your together an order of $35 or more, that's after discounts and before shipping, and add the phrase in your shipping notes, wire winner. Tomorrow, when Chris comes in, out of all of the qualifying entries, We will choose 3 of you and email you and say, congratulations, you've won the wire bundle. Okay, so I put them in this cute little bag so it's ready to go. So you can see today is January 29th, Wednesday, and you can add lookbook 20 at checkout. If you're watching this on replay and it's not the 29th of January any longer, go ahead to our website and sign up for our newsletter. If you go right to beadshop.com, you can find information on all of the projects that we do here on our live broadcasts, including this one, Wire Play Day, and you can find all of the products that we use in our broadcast. You can go to the homepage, sign up for our newsletter. We keep all of your information private. We don't share it or sell it. And you'll get emails about our discounts and our giveaways and new products that we have coming down the pike. Okay? Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed working with wire as much as I did sharing it with you. So go over to, if you're not a member already, join us over on Facebook at our private beadshop.com fan group. It's called beadshop.com, the bead table. You need to answer 3 questions. If you don't answer those 3 questions, you guys, we're not going to let you in, because we need to make sure that you're a real person and not a robot. So, or, well, a robot that likes beads, I guess. So go ahead, go over there, answer those 3 questions, and we'll be glad to have you join us. Our members post their photos of their projects. Our design team shares tips and tricks. Janice and I and Drea pop in a lot and chat and stuff. So it's a lot of fun over there. We'd love to have you. So make sure that you click over there. Brittany and Emily are also over there participating, so it'd be great to have you. Speaking of Brittany, on Friday, the last day of January, in just 2 days, Brittany's going to be here with me on Friday. We are debuting an amazing kit. I've named her Zelda. And as you might guess, you've seen me wear it on this broadcast before. It's a wonderful, wonderful bracelet project. And I chose the color palette. Brittany did the pattern, and it is a mashup of two great designs. So I think you're going to love it. Brittany's going to do a great macrame piece with that. So that kit drops. It starts at midnight Pacific time on Friday. We're going to release them in 2 waves at midnight, and then they'll go in again an hour before the broadcast at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. But I'll be with Brittany on Friday, so I will see you then. Next week, we've got some more fun stuff for you. I've got that mosaic, what do I want to call it? The mosaic peyote that Allie did from the lookbook. And that's going to lead us off into February with a lot of fun stuff that's coming up. So thank you again. Don't forget to use today's coupon, Lookbook20, and I will see you all on Friday. Thank you so much for the love, the shares, the remarks, the comments. We couldn't do it without you. We really, really appreciate your support of our small business. I'll see you guys on Friday. Thanks so much.